So today we're going to talk about the path of least resistance. What does that mean, right? And how can you use the path of least resistance to achieve whatever goals you want in life, achieve whatever successes you want to achieve. So the path of least resistance, you can also call it low-hanging fruit, right? You can call it even the bare minimum. I know it doesn't sound great, but it's probably the best thing you can do for yourself. And let me explain. So oftentimes we compare ourselves to other people, right? They're doing so much. They have 3 master's degrees. They wake up at 5 in the morning to go for a 10-mile run every day. They're highly motivated, XYZ. And then we try to fit ourselves into that frame and we can't see it. Therefore, we say, oh, it's too hard. I can never do whatever this person's doing. And then we kind of write it off and then we just exist through life, doing nothing, right? But if we start looking at things objectively, right? And we start looking at things objectively and we start saying, okay, what's the easiest way for me to reach this goal my way, right? What's my path of least resistance to get to my goal? And then we start building a different type of mind frame, right? Like, for example, let me give you an example. So like working out, right? Or getting in shape, fit, whatever you want to call it. There's so many ways to achieve the same goal, right? You can go all the way from a person who maybe eats once a day and walks for an hour, all the way to the other polar opposite, which is like David Goggins, for example, right? The guy runs like 100 miles a day. He lifts 1,000 pounds. You get the point, right? If we all try to do what David Goggins does, probably about 99% of us would absolutely fail at fitness or, our goal. Because for most of us, a program like that is not sustainable. So then we have to realize what are the laws of fitness, right? Or what are the laws of losing weight or looking aesthetic, right? So very basic laws. No matter what anyone tells you, the first one is going to be calorie deficit, right? Track your food. That way you know how much calories you're taking in every day, and week after week or even day after day, your weight will go down. Obviously, it'll stall sometimes, but then it'll keep going. As long as you stay on track and you do that, it'll keep going down. And that's the law. That's the law of losing weight. Calories in versus calories out. Don't let anyone tell you any different. Now, there's different nuances depending on your goal, right? If you want to pack on muscle, you probably want to eat a little bit more protein, right? Maybe a little bit more carbs to fuel your workouts, or at least eat carbs around workout, right? If you really don't care for that, then literally just eat under your calorie maintenance and you'll lose weight, So it just depends, but that's the law, right? So once you figure out the law, you say, all right, me, I like to eat once a day. I think that's going to work for me if you can stick to it. And that's the key. The path of least resistance builds consistency. So you say, all right, I'm going to eat once a day. And I think I can stick with that. If you can stick with that and you're following the law, which is calories in have to be less than calories out, you're going to lose the weight, right? Or, for some people, they may say, you know what, OMAD is too extreme for me. I'm not going to do 1 meal a day. I'm going to do 2 meals a day. Or I'm going to do 3 meals a day. Or I'm going to do 6 meals a day, right? As long as you're within that calorie deficit, it doesn't matter. But a lot of people, they try to force things that don't align with them, with their spirituality, with their physicality, their mentality. And they see other people doing shit and they're like, oh, I'm going to do that because it's, he's shredded or he's rich or her, whatever. And they try to emulate that, but it doesn't align with them. So the path of least resistance is finding what aligns with you, all right? After you can do that and you have the law, you have the baseline for whatever that goal is, and then you start implementing systems within within that law that will allow you to stay consistent and will allow you to build a system to get where you need to get to. It's that simple, guys. You have to sit down and really think to yourself, right? It doesn't matter what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to be healthier, you're trying to eat better, you're trying to work out more, you're trying to maybe make more money, maybe switch to a different like career. What's the path of least resistance in your case to get to that career, right? If you want to be a doctor, for example, right? Most doctors are gonna do the traditional route, which is 4 years of undergrad and then 4 years of med school, 4 years of residency. That's great, but some people want to be doctors, but they don't want to go for that long, right? Some people may end up, for example, going to the Caribbean and getting a medical degree out there, which takes 3 years and a little bit less money probably. And then they come back here, they do their test, they become a doctor, right? It's the path of least resistance to the same goal. So it's like, why take 12 years to be a medical doctor when you can take 9, right? You're shaving off 4 years or 3 years on that medical degree. So these are the kind of things that I'm trying to get at, and it's important because comparison is the thief of joy. So it's important to not compare yourself to other people and just live on your path of least resistance. Life is always going to throw you low-hanging fruit, and it's important that you recognize that low-hanging fruit and then that you grab it. Life, most of the time, like the universe, it sees you moving towards a direction, it sees you doing something, and it's 100% always going to aid you. I think our problem is, as humans, we have an ego, so we're like, oh no, that's too easy, or that's too simple, or that's not enough, or I have to do too much. We're over complicating things when they're really pretty much straightforward. I mean, there's things in life you can't control, but the things that we can control, they're pretty straightforward. We just have to simplify them, and that's what the path of least resistance does. When Bruce Lee said, "Be like water," I interpret that as taking the path of least resistance. Why? Because water doesn't fight. It goes this way, right? There's a rock there. There's a wall. It splits the rock. It'll bounce off the wall, go back here, right? Water's always going to find a way out. Whatever way it needs to go, it will go. So it's like water isn't, inherently, it's not an intelligent animal, right? Like we're intelligent, right? It doesn't have the capability of reasoning, but it doesn't have to. Water just does. It gets where it needs to go to when it needs to get there. And it takes the path of least resistance. Why do we, as rational human beings, think that we can outsmart the universe, so we can outsmart things that are meant to be, right? So if you simplify it that way, you'll see that you need to be like water, right? You need to be like water. Get your things done, stay active, keep moving forward, but don't when you encounter resistance, find a way around it. The easiest way is just to sit down and say, how am I going to get about this? It's very simple. But anyway, I'll do more videos like these, kind of explaining the path of least resistance, and I'll get more in depth. I just wanted to, kind of make an introduction to it, and then we'll keep going as we go. All right, have a good one, y'all.